Decimals. A decimal fraction is the fraction whose denominator is 10, 100, 1000, etc. A decimal fraction has two parts, the whole number part and the decimal part. Two parts are separated by a decimal point. The number 375.829 can be written in expanded form as 375.829 is equal to 300 plus 70 plus 5 plus 8 by 10 plus 2 by 10 plus 2 by 100 plus 9 by 1000. Another way to write 375.829 in its expanded form is 375.829 is equal to 300 plus 70 plus 5 plus 0.8 plus 0.02 plus 0.009. It means the number 375.829 contains 3 hundreds, 7 tens, 5 ones, 8 tenths, 2 hundredths and 9 thousandths. Like, unlike and equivalent decimals. Decimals having the same number of decimal places are called like decimals. Decimal fractions are called decimal numbers or decimals. Examples: A. 0.5, 7.3, 9.8, etc. are the like decimals having one decimal place. B. 0.85, 1.09, 3.45, etc. are the like decimals having two decimal places. C. 0.154, 3.017, 17.009, etc. are the like decimals having three decimal places. The decimals having different numbers of decimal places are called unlike decimals. The following are the sets of unlike decimals. A. 0.9, 2.75, 3.015. B. 1.78, 3.708, 7.18. C. 3.915, 7.15, 75.7. Equivalent decimals are the decimals which may have the same or different decimal places, but they represent the same value. Consider the decimal numbers: 0.3, 3 by 10, 3 by 10, 0.30, 30 by 100, 3 by 10, 0.300, 300 by 1000, 3 by 10. Writing or removing zeros at the end of a decimal does not affect its value. So we can also write 0.3 equal to 0.30, which is equal to 0.3000. From the above, we may conclude that a decimal fraction remains unaffected if we write any number of zeros after the last non-zero digit in the decimal part of the decimal number. Converting unlike decimals into like decimals. We can convert unlike decimals into like decimals by finding their equivalent decimal. For example, we are given 3.172, 3.05, 41.1 unlike decimals. We can change these unlike decimals into like decimals by finding their equivalent decimals up to 3 decimal places. 3.172, 3.172, 3.05, 3.050, 41.1, 41.100. Addition of decimals. We add decimal numbers in the same way as we add whole numbers. In whole numbers, we add ones with ones, tens with tens, hundreds with hundreds, and so on. Similarly, in case of decimal numbers, we add thousands with thousands, hundreds with hundreds, tenths with tenths, ones with ones, tens with tens, and so on. Example 1. Add 85.72, 72.5, 92.008. Solution. Step 1. Convert all decimal numbers as like decimal numbers. 85.72 becomes 85.720. 72.5 becomes 72.500. 92.008 becomes 92.008. Step 2. Arrange the decimals one below the other so that the decimal point and all digits are in the same column. Step 3. Start adding the numbers from extreme right column. Here it is thousands column. Carry over if needed. Step 4. Place the decimal point in the sum exactly below the other decimal points. Properties of decimal addition. A. When 0 is added to a decimal number, the sum is the same number. 17.5 plus 0 is equal to 17.5. 0 plus 28.07 is equal to 28.07. 35.757 plus 0 is equal to 35.757. 0 plus 9.909 is equal to 9.909. B. Two decimal numbers can be added in any order. The sum is not affected by the order we use while addition. 7.3 plus 2.5 is equal to 9.8. 2.5 plus 7.3 is equal to 9.8. Subtraction of decimals. Subtraction of decimals is performed in the similar way as we subtract whole numbers. We subtract number in same decimal places. Borrowing is done if necessary. Example 2. Subtract 16.92 from 85.705. Solution. Step 1. Change the given decimals into like decimals. 16.92 becomes 16.920. 85.705 becomes 85.705. Step 2. Write greater number above the smaller one such that the digits at corresponding places are one below the other in same columns. Step 3. Start the process of subtraction in the same way as we do for whole numbers. Step 4. Place the decimal points in the answer in the same column as it is in the other numbers. Properties of decimal subtraction. A. Any decimal number subtracted from itself gives 0 as the answer. 7.95 minus 7.95 is equal to 0. B. When we subtract 0 from a number, we get the same number as answer. 0.98 minus 0 is equal to 0.98. Multiplication of a decimal by a whole number. Multiplication is the repeated addition and the same is true for decimal numbers also. So, we can write 4 multiplied by 0.9, which is equal to 0.9 plus 0.9 plus 0.9 plus 0.9, which is equal to 3.6. Let us consider the following example. Example 3. Multiply 7.35 by 7. Solution. Step 1. Multiply the two numbers ignoring the decimal point. Step 2. Count the number of decimal places in the factors. Step 3. Show the number of decimal places in the product. Let us solve the sum using fractions. 7.35 is equal to 735 by 100. 7.35 multiplied by 7 is equal to 735 by 100 multiplied by 7 by 1, which is equal to 735 multiplied by 7 by 100 multiplied by 1, which is equal to 5145 by 100, which is equal to 5145. Multiplication of a decimal by a decimal. Let us understand the multiplication of a decimal fraction with another decimal fraction by the following examples. Example 4. Multiply 7.25 by 3.4. Solution. Step 1. Multiply the two numbers ignoring the decimal points. Step 2. Count the number of decimal places in both the factors and add them. Step 3. Show the number of places in the product. Solving using fractions. 7.25 multiplied by 3.4 is equal to 725 by 100 multiplied by 34 by 10, which is equal to 725 by 100 multiplied by 34 by 10, which is equal to 24,650 by 1000, which is equal to 24.650. Remember, the number of decimal places in the product equals the sum of the number of decimal places in the factors. While putting the decimal point in the product, we count the digits from the right. Need of zeros in the product. Sometimes we may need extra zeros in the product so that we may show the correct number of decimal places in the product. Let us multiply 0.3 by 0.2. Step 1. Multiply 0.3 by 0.2 ignoring the decimals. Step 2. Count decimal places in the factors and add them. That is, 1 plus 1 is equal to 2 decimal places. Step 3. Show 2 decimal places in the answer. As there is 1 digit in the product, so extra 0 is needed to show 2 decimal places in the product. Multiplication by 10, 100, 1000. Consider the following examples. 7.395 multiplied by 10 is equal to 73.95. 7.395 multiplied by 100 is equal to 739.5. 7.395 multiplied by 1000 is equal to 7395. Did you notice a pattern in them? Observe the decimal points carefully. Multiplying by 10 shifts the decimal point one place to the right. For example, 7.896 multiplied by 10 is equal to 78.96. 0.915 multiplied by 10 is equal to 9.15. 0.007 multiplied by 10 is equal to 0.07. 78.96. 09.15. 00.07. Multiplying with 100 shifts the decimal points 2 places to the right. For example, 3.965 multiplied by 100 is equal to 396.5. 395.6. 0.851 multiplied by 100 is equal to 85.1. 0.85.1. 0.009 multiplied by 100 is equal to 0.9. 0.009. 3.5 multiplied by 100 is equal to 350. 350. Since there is only one place after decimal in one factor and the other factor has 2 zeros, therefore we put 1 zero at the end of the product and drop the decimal point. Multiplying by 1000 shifts the decimal point 3 places to the right. For example, 5.656 multiplied by 1000 is equal to 5656. 5656 decimal 6.91 multiplied by 1000 is equal to 6910. 6910 decimal. 6.4 multiplied by 1000 is equal to 6400. In case of 6.4 multiplied by 1000, the first factor has one place after decimal and the other factor has 3 zeros. So, we place 2 zeros at the end of the product and drop the decimal point. Properties of multiplication. 1. When we multiply a decimal number with 1, we get the number itself as the answer. For example, 7.5 multiplied by 1 is equal to 7.5, or 3.935 multiplied by 1 is equal to 3.935. 2. The product of a decimal number and 0 is always 0. For example, 7.95 multiplied by 0 is equal to 0, or 9.57 multiplied by 0 is equal to 0. 3. Two decimal fractions multiplied in any order give the same product. For example, 30.92 multiplied by 1.3 is equal to 40.196. 1.3 multiplied by 30.92 is equal to 40.196. Therefore, 30.92 multiplied by 1.3 is equal to 1.3 multiplied by 30.92. Division of decimal numbers. Dividing a decimal fraction with a whole number is as simple as dividing the whole number. We have to only take care of the decimal point. When we take the digit from the 10th place in the dividend, we place the decimal point in the quotient. Example 5. Divide 15.18 divided by 6. Solution. We have brought down the 10th digit of the dividend. So we put the decimal point in the quotient. Therefore, 15.18 divided by 6 is equal to 2.53. Example 6. Divide 1.36 with 8. Solution. Here, divisor is greater than dividend. We have brought down the 10th digit of the dividend. So, we put the decimal point in the quotient. Answer. 1.36 divided by 8 is equal to 0.17. Answer verification. Divisor multiplied by quotient is equal to dividend. 8 multiplied by 0.17 is equal to 1.36. Example 7. Divide 5.8 with 4. Solution. Remainder is 2. When we divide decimals, we do not show remainders. We keep on adding zeros at every step till the division is complete. We can add as many zeros as required after the decimal part of the dividend, because a decimal number remains same on writing any number of zeros after last non-zero digit in its decimal part. Example. Divide 29.5 with 4. Here, 2 extra zeros are added to complete the division. Answer. 29.5 divided by 4 is equal to 7.375. Dividing by 10, 100, 1000. Consider the following examples. A. 735.7 divided by 10 is equal to 73.57. B. 109.7 divided by 100 is equal to 1.097. C. 735.6 divided by 1000 is equal to 0.7356. What do you observe? Is there any pattern? 1. When dividing by 10, the decimal point shifts to the left by 1 decimal place. For example, 17.35 divided by 10 is equal to 1.735. 1.735. 2. When dividing by 100, the decimal point shifts to the left by 2 decimal places. For example, 472.5 divided by 100 is equal to 4.725. 4.725. 3. When dividing by 1000, the decimal point shifts to the left by 3 decimal places. For example, 137.2 divided by 1000 is equal to 0.1372. 32 divided by 1000 is equal to 0.032. Division of decimal numbers. When we divide by decimals, we have to first convert the divisor into a whole number. Example, 1.62 by 0.6. Step 1. Multiply the decimal divisor by a multiple of 10 to make it a whole number. 0.6 multiplied by 10 is equal to 6. Step 2. Multiply the dividend by the same multiple of 10. 1.62 multiplied by 10 is equal to 16.2. 1.62 multiplied by 10 is equal to, repeat, 1.62 multiplied by 10 is equal to 16.2. Step 3. Now divide. Answer, 1.62 divided by 0.6 is equal to 2.7. Another method. Shift both decimal points to the same number of places till the divisor becomes a whole number. Another method. Example 9. Divide A. 0.483 with 2.1. B. 203 with 1.4. Solution. A. 0.483 divided by 2.1. Step 1. Step 2. Step 3. Answer. 0.483 divided by 2.1 is equal to 0.23. B. 203 divided by 1.4. Step 1. Step 2. Step 3. Answer. 203 divided by 1.4 is equal to 145.